Pattaya City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
I might have managed to turn it off. Which was how to survive the Thai medical system, which was so interesting we couldn't put it on YouTube because we thought he and us, we might get legal heat out of it. And it's really worth thinking about signing up for Doc Martin's program. You go there, he does a very thorough checkup, you become part of his system. It's like 1,000 baht. And that means that you've got like a medical wingman. If you're in hospital, he can come and check on you, check that you're getting the right antibiotics, all that sort of thing. I know one of our members had food poisoning, and where is he? I can't see him. Oh, John, he changed your medication, didn't he? And really, because they were giving you the wrong sort of antibiotic, he changed the antibiotic and you were good in 6 hours later, right? So it's worth having a wingman. And if you go there and sign up to his system, you'll have a wingman if you end up in hospital who can really get involved in the treatment and, swing the bat on your behalf. So he's here to, I'm dubbing his series of talk Doctor at Large. For those of you, anybody remember the old BBC series Doctor at Large? Nobody? Oh yeah, somebody's nodding. It was a very funny series. Anyway, so he's going to do another in his series of Doctor at Large. He's going to touch. Well, I'll let him do the talk. It's always entertaining, and he's come in at pretty short notice because ironically, I lost the original speaker for today due to medical issues in her family, not with her, but in her family. So, Doc Martin, come on up. The Doctor at Large. Just reminding you that's forward and that's backward. Forward is down.
Got my eyes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Come on.
Can you hear me? Oh yes. Hello everybody. Well, I think most of you know me or have seen me before. Just quickly run through this Club Pattaya thing. So this is a setup I've got. Basically, I give second opinions, medical second opinions. I was specialised in pain management for 40 years, and I work with the spa, and they do the massage, and I can do health screening as well. But basically, as Ren was saying, if you sign up, I become your de facto doctor, and if you've got trouble in hospital, I'll come in and check that everything's okay. Because when you sign my form, it allows me access to all your medical files and records, just to help. So, this is my Club Medical. That's my card. Doctor at Large, Cool Runnings. Jamaica. Having worked 112 hours a week for 12 months, I completed my intern year. I became a fully registered doctor in 1980. My elder brother Kevin was in Jamaica working with Price Waterhouse, and a job became available at Linstead Hospital. I left the UK for 6 months working holiday. Jamaica. There. Sits very comfortably in the North Atlantic Ocean. There it is. Beautiful country. The island's about 10,990 square metres. And the indigenous people called Tamo called it Zaimarka. Zaimarka means land of wood and water, which is exactly what it is. There it is. It's when you're flying over. The whole island's like that. Absolutely, well, not at Kingston, but it is over the rest of the island. So just some history for you. The Spanish invaded Zaimarka in 1494 and assumed rule. Many Tamos died from trivial illnesses brought by the Spanish. The same sort of thing happened in Australia when the English went to Australia. They brought trivial illnesses with them, plus alcohol, and it almost wiped out all the Aboriginal population. So Spain changed the country's name to Santiago, and they relocated many African Negro slaves to the island when the slave trade was happening. And I think they picked all the biggest Negroes because they're huge. Anyway, in 1655, let's go down. So this is evidence of Spanish occupation before the English took over. You know, the typical Spanish house. So in 1655, the UK took control and renamed the island Jamaica. The country adopted its coat of arms, which is this. Very crude for a coat of arms, but basically it's out of many, one people. So there's a huge blend of cultures in Jamaica. That's good and it's also bad. Okay, the African slaves were emancipated in 1838. Once free, most chose a subsistence lifestyle, refusing to work in the sugar industry. So the English imported Chinese and Indian workers for plantation work. Typical English. The population of Jamaica is 2.8 million. The country entertains about 4.3 million tourists a year. It's a beautiful country. Well worth a visit, although I haven't been there for about 40 years. So this is Jamaica. There's Kingston. That's where my brother was. I'm going to Linstead. That's the hospital I worked in. This is the Blue Mountains. This, all the north side, is just wonderful. And Montego Bay had a hotel. What was it called? It'll come to me in a minute. Hedonism. It's called hedonism. And you think Soy 6 is bad, you should go there. It's, I mean, everything went. Sex in the water, sex in the pools. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Only stayed there for 4 months. It's a joke. And this is the Blue Mountains. This is where the world famous blue coffee comes from. Blue Mountain coffee. There. My brother and I ran up there and down. As one of what am I up to now? Yeah, as one of 40, one of about 20 Jamaican expats, I became included in that group. Around the world, we would spend our weekends together at the beaches, sailing in the bay, running up the Blue Mountains. We even played rugby against the Kingston team. We lost. They're all big. But it was a wonderful time of fond amity for me. These are the pictures of Jamaica. This is on the north coast. And these freshwater pools coming from the mountains pour straight into the sea. See? And they're everywhere. And this is Jamaica cultural heritage. You know, you're not allowed to take their photographs because if you take their photograph, you're taking their soul, so they believe. Unless you offer them $10, then they'll take then you can take their photograph. Same around the world, isn't it? Okay, the Linstead Hospital. Haven't got that. So I've given you. Can I have a? Yeah. I couldn't get the picture off the net because it was a public service. It was a hospital, so you couldn't get it. But basically, this is the Linstead Hospital. You got it on the table there. Now, it's 120 beds. Now, we'll talk about this later. But you see this drive up here, this little driveway. At the end of that driveway, there was a an outpost for the People's National Party, PNP. It was a stronghold. We'll come across that later. All right, so on arrival I met Arthur Wint. That's Arthur Wint. He was the first Jamaican to ever get a gold medal in the 400 meters. It was in 1948. And he also got a second gold medal in 1952. Brilliant man. Funny. Anyway, he took me for a quick walk around the wards, and then we ended up in the operating room. And I said, okay, it's a nice operating room. When does the anaesthetist come in? He said, we don't have an anaesthetist. I said, so what do you do? He says, come here, Martin. And we ran back where the bottles of gas were. And he says, put the mask on, turn these bottles up, and they'll start spinning. And then look round. If he's still got his eyes open, put them up a bit more. When his eyes close, you're ready to go. I thought, oh dear, this is interesting. And then I said to him, how many more staff have I got to work with? He said, none. You're it. So I was fresh out of medical school, 25 years old, running a hospital. Arthur didn't want anything to do with it. I mean, he was a director, but he preferred not to be there. Just as a side, Dolly, you all know about Dolly the sheep? Yeah? Do you know that there was other clones done, but we don't know where? Do you know that? This is before Dolly the sheep. Dolly from Dolly Parton was supposed to be the first cloned sheep, or just cloned animal. Well, I think, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think that Arthur Wint, he had all the medical qualifications. He had a hospitalist services, so I think he cloned himself. There. That's his clone. Just a joke. All right. So, the next day, I went round to do a ward round, and I asked the nurse, blood tests and x-rays. She said, oh, blood tests take 6 weeks. X-rays take 3 months. I thought, jeepers, this is going to be heavy duty. So, this is the outpatient department. So the first, the outpatients happened twice a week, and this was one of the first people who came in was a Jamaican, a Negro Jamaican, big chap, and he asked me for the injection, doc. I said, what for? He said, I have a cold. I said, where? He said, down here. I said, oh, you've got gonorrhea. Oh, he went. I said, because I was a new, naive doctor, I said, right, I'll do this for you, but I've got to make a contact tracing letter for you. I'll give you this. You give it to your girlfriend and make sure she comes to see me. He said, fine. I wrote this out longhand. No typewriter, no computer, no nothing. Just wrote it out longhand. And then he did this. He said, I need 5 more. The next person who came in had 10. He wanted 10 forms. So I just gave up, and I just gave him his injection and just put them through. Anyway, so I saw some fantastic pathology. Any idea what this is? Besides a pair of legs. By the way, sorry, I lost a lot of photographs from when I was in Jamaica, when we had the Australian floods in Brisbane in 2009, 2010. So I've had to make these slides up. So you see that pair of legs? This lady came in like this. Now what's it? Any idea of the diagnosis? Brilliant. Who said that? Good man. This is elephantiasis. Now, she had this from birth. It progressively got worse and worse. And there's nothing you can do about it. And when it gets to this stage and it becomes organised, there's no point in putting compression bandages on and things. It just doesn't work. So the next lady that came in, after this lady, I mean, this is my first day there at an outpatient. You know those milking chairs with the 3 legs? You know, she came in like this, pulling this milking chair. She had a face mask on. She came up to the table, and she took her face mask off, and she started pulling out dressings from her nose. And it just came, and they were filthy. Came. And when she'd taken it all out, there was no nose. I could see right at the back of her throat. Now this is how good my medical training was in Nottingham. I knew what that was, and I knew what this lady had. She had a form of syphilis called yaws. And yaws, this is a lady from Thailand. And this is another example of elephantiasis, but limited to the finger. So, that one's missing. So this lady looked like this chap up here. See? No nose, but she was a lot worse. And this is caused by syphilis, but in a slightly different gene. It's called yaws, but it's still a syphilitic infection. And of course, there's nothing you can do about that at that stage. I mean, these people they came to see me because I was a UK practitioner, and of course the UK had a good rapport with Jamaica because we set up the healthcare system over there. Okay. So a couple of weeks later, yes. So the Jamaicans, they have overproof rum. Overproof rum, 63%. I think they have a stronger one which they dilute down to 63, and they also do 40%. But that is cheap. So what happens is they're all cane cutters, and they get angry and drunk. And it's just a one-blow technique, whoever gets in first. But they slap, it's a downstroke onto the shoulder here. So all these muscles are opened up. And if they hit in the neck, then you take the nerves out as well. So Arthur Wint came in to suture somebody, this poor boy who'd been cut. And he's sitting across the operating table. He's giving him a local anaesthetic. And the boy's complaining because it's too much pain. And he said, I've given you anaesthetic. He said, it's too much pain. So Arthur just leant over and went poof, across the head. Shut up. So this is the level of medicine that they did in Jamaica. Anyway, so my first cultural mistake. I did a ward round the second day I was there, and I went into the medical ward, and there was one bed with mosquito nets over it. And when I looked in, there was a little lady. I mean, she was withered and wasted. She was barely conscious. And she had bilateral strokes, so she couldn't move at all. So they were feeding her parenterally, and they were giving her a drip. Now, I did 6 months on a cancer ward in part of my training. And this lady, she was on 5 milligrams of morphine drip, which is nothing. So what I did was I said, well, we'll double that dose, because that's what we used to do for dying patients. It's called euthanasia. You're not killing them, you're just making them feel comfortable, and their death isn't painful. So I did that, and within 10 minutes, the chief pharmacist came out screaming. Said, you can't do that. I said, what? She said, increase the dose of morphine. It might kill her. I said, yeah. She said, but you can't do that. And I didn't understand at that stage how sensitive these people were about how people died. It's a bit like Buddhists, you know, you've got to over here, you've got to continue to maintain life for as long as possible. And then when it can't be maintained anymore, you just, okay, discharge them and they die. This lady couldn't even be discharged. Anyway, she died about 2 weeks later after I'd reduced the dose. Now, as I went round the wards, I went to the paediatric ward, which was overflowing with fitting and handicapped children, obviously from delivery difficulties, in the OBGYN ward. And I made a conscious effort to improve the facilities in the O&G ward to see if we could stop all these damaged babies. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, Arthur Wint had been back. It's the only time he came back. But there was Linstead Markets. Linstead Market's quite famous. The Carpenters made a song about it in the 60s. We're all going to the Linstead Market. And it's about the markets and somebody coming to the markets and not selling anything. And how are they going to look after their kids because they've got no money? So after that, they have a big party. Now, it was in the town hall, and it was unbelievable because not only are they big and black, they're athletic and fit, and God, can they dance. But what happened was, so they partner up and they start dancing. I mean, really elegantly. But then the cue was that the girl would go down the man's leg and then back up again. They would then go outside and have intercourse and then come back in. Unbelievable. When I went out to see what was going on, they were actually lined up having intercourse. There were no lights at the back, except my torch, of course. So I lost all the pictures. I couldn't get them through customs. When I was, watching these people, I got an emergency call from the hospital. So I ran back to the hospital, and in the emergency ward room, it's on the side of the hospital, and it has 3 walls that are all glass, so people can see what's happening. So I came running in. This lady was obviously dead. I came running in, and I hit her, as you do, to try and shock the heart back in, and I started doing CPR. And her 2 sons, and these were really big Negroes, started bashing on the glass. I couldn't understand what was wrong, but I was more intent on saving her life, but she was already dead. Anyway, they came around the side to try and get in the doors, and I said, "What's happening, nurse?" They said, if we hadn't locked the doors, they would have come in and killed you. And this is the second mistake I made. You're not allowed to abuse a dead body. And as far as they could see, I was abusing their mother. But I wasn't. I was trying to save her life, but they couldn't see that. So, so basically, the lesson is always respect the culture of the country in which you're a guest. And we're all guests. We're all guests here. And we have to respect the culture. Otherwise, things can go wrong. Okay, with each passing week, I became more comfortable as I honed my clinical skills. Couldn't do blood tests, couldn't do x-rays, just had to look at the patient, work out what was wrong and fix it. I was invited to stay, to extend my stay for a further 6 months. About 4 months into my stay, the senior sister in the ward asked me to dinner to meet her husband, Bob. This was my first introduction to marijuana, by the way. I didn't know he grew marijuana. And that was the first time I had a spiff, or whatever it's called. Interesting. I think I laughed a lot. Anyway, so... where did I get to? Yeah. So 4 months. So going to Jamaican politics, Jamaica was tearing itself apart. The country was at war with itself. The two political movements, the right-wing JLP, backed by the CIA, I have no idea why they were there, and the left-wing PNP, People's National Party, backed by Cuba and Russia. Anyway, the PNP had an outpost opposite the hospital, which is that little road that I showed you on here. And over the months I was there, the fighting went from throwing rocks to smashing windows and firing shots at the club, and finally drive-past shootings with machine guns. And this was just in Linstead. You can imagine what it's like in Kingston, the centre, the capital. Anyway, because of the carnage in the streets, about this time, a patient at the hospital had an obstructed labour, face to pubes. You know what that means? Face to pubes? No. So baby comes out head first like this, head face down. And that's the diameter that it got to get through the pelvis. When the baby's the other way around, it's coming out like this, it's got to get this through. And it's much bigger. It's called face to pubes, and the baby gets stuck. And I saw this, and I thought, this baby isn't doing well. We need to take it to Kingston for an operation. The mother needs a cesarean section. So I ordered the ambulance. And when it arrived, because of the carnage in the streets in Kingston, the ambulance officers refused to go there. That's how bad it was. Arthur Wint was called. We discussed the problem. I was prepared to drive the bus myself. Because of the violence in the Kingston streets, Arthur Wint told security to lock the gates and take the keys from me, which they did. I recall standing in the middle of the courtyard, upset. I knew what was going to happen to the baby. If it did not die, it would be significantly damaged. It's difficult for somebody like me to accept such terrible outcomes. And I recall saying to myself, what am I doing here? It's nearly the end of my tenure in any case. Unfortunately, the baby survived. The delivery took many, many hours, and the baby was severely and permanently damaged. When Bob heard I was leaving, because I handed in my resignation the next day, and I had about 3 weeks to go. When Bob heard I was leaving, he brought some marijuana, and I'm not talking about a little bit. I'm talking about a big bunch, like this. And I couldn't understand why he did that. 'Cause I wasn't a mule, never would be a mule. Then I realised, as the country fell further into domestic conflict and ruthless brutality, the future viability of the country was brought into question. So the wealthy preparing themselves to leave found many ways to illegally remove their wealth from Jamaica. Bob was simply trying to relocate his wealth of marijuana into the UK prior to leaving. So I spent the last week in Jamaica, in Ocho Rios, that's the north side. Beautiful. I mean, the seas are perfect, clean and everything. Several of the boys came over from medical school, so we had a last week together. I left Jamaica with a travel bug firmly entrenched in my mind. The UK medical system was in tatters. After 3 more 6-monthly rotations in psychiatry, paediatrics and obstetrics, I needed another break. In 1982, I went to Australia for 3 months, working holiday and to watch the Commonwealth Games. But I had 3 other goals. These aren't me, by the way. First one was to windsurf at Surfers Paradise. That's not me. Well, I haven't got any pictures. Scuba dive, I was PCEC. I had a PCEC qualification, so I could scuba dive properly. So I did that, and then parachuted. I was in free falling, and that was the first time when I was, 200,000 feet in the sky, or nearly 200,000. I was looking down, thinking, where's the jump site? I couldn't see it, and there was a big tree, and I just couldn't see it until I got close and close to the ground. But and I didn't realise just how awful these types of parachutes are, because they use ram air parachutes now, and it's easy to maneuver them, where it's really difficult to maneuver those. So the forces in the war, I don't know how they managed. Okay, the paratroopers I'm talking about. So, I settled. I went for three months holiday as a working holiday as a doctor in Australia, and I never went home again. Kevin followed me to Australia. Andrew, my younger brother, and his wife came about a year later, and then my mother followed, so we're all over there. And I had the privilege of a life and position in Australia where I felt at home. I ended up living in Beach's high-rise, which is this. I owned the top 2 floors there, right on the seafront, at Surfers Paradise. Brilliant. And I thoroughly enjoyed my 34 years there, where I became a prominent physician. Now, I have one photograph of me there, kite surfing. This is me kite surfing. This is a really sad photograph for me, because as most of you know, between 50 and 60, I was ravaged with hip replacements and spine manipulation surgery and stuff. So this was the last time I took my kite out. So I went out in the wind, as you can see, and I tried to do a jump just to check my hips. And on the way back, on the way back, I did a jump, and I landed a little bit awkwardly, and my hip hurt. And that was the last time I did any kite surfing. And that was it. So there we go. Any questions?
Another wonderful talk at the club. It's always a great pleasure to have you here. And, I'm teaching a dance class. I used to teach and dance in Australia and win competitions and stuff. So I'm going to meet with you after, and you can show me that move that causes women that you have to go out and have sex with the woman afterwards. I'm going to teach that move on Sunday.
It's all right, I've been practicing it for years.
Alrighty, we have, of course, a very small token of our deep appreciation. Come over here. And this is like what you're hearing about Big Ron and stuff. You really want to think about going and seeing Doc Martin and getting him there so he can be your medical wingman, right?
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Now, just next week,